When you work with Word and you have a fairly large document, or maybe one that's even just sort of complicated, it has chapters, it has sections, and you would like for your reader to be able to find the information that they need in the easiest way possible, well, how could you possibly do that? Well, one way is to add a table of contents, and with Word, there are two different ways that you can add that table of contents. So we're going to look at that today. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's look at Word's table of contents. Looking at our example document, we can see that we have done some pre-planning for a vacation trip, and it's not very long, but we even have a little introductory sentence here about what we're planning to do. And then because that introduction is so short, we've also added the first stop along the way on our first page. Now, as we come down in the document, we can see that the next page has the next stop, which is Metropolis, and then we can go down, and the next page is Paducah, and the last page here is Nashville. Now, obviously, we just have a couple of sentences because they're just kind of thought starters. So what we haven't added and what we plan to add is things like, how was the trip along the way? Did it rain? Was it bumpy? Was there some sort of road construction that we had to deal with? What songs did we sing? What kind of games did we play? What music did we listen to? What snacks did we have? And when we get to a spot, did we go to a restaurant? Did we go to other kind of touristy places that we enjoyed? All sorts of other things that make up this family trip. Well, let's go back to the beginning, because we've decided that for anybody to view this, maybe they only want to look at the third day for some reason. Well, we could add a table of contents, and then they could simply look at that table of contents to take them to where they want to go in the document, and they won't have to scroll down through the whole thing. To create a table of contents, we may decide that we would like to use kind of the old-fashioned way. It still works within Word, and it is sometimes used because people prefer not to use styles, or maybe they use styles, but there is some text that they don't want to style, but they still want it to appear within the table of contents. So what they can do is select the text and mark it for the table of contents. To do that, we'll just come down to first stop St. Louis, and then we are going to use the keyboard shortcuts, Alt-Shift-O, and it brings up a dialog box that, first of all, it tells me that what I selected, the entry that's going to show up in the table of contents, is first step St. Louis. The table identifier, I believe the C really just stands for contents, but leave that the way it is. And then for level, if you think of an outline, level 1 is the leftmost entry, so it's the most important details, and then you would indent, and that level would be 2, and then if you had another level, a sub-level of 2, it would be 3. And so you can change those levels to match your information in your particular document, but we're not going to do anything past level 1, and then we need to be sure to mark and close. From here, even though I did not have the Show Hide button on, it turns on. So let's find that. It's on the Home tab in the paragraph group in the upper right, and it kind of looks like a paragraph mark, but as you see in my document, it now has TC for table of contents, and then it has the text, and then it has that C, that was the second entry, and then it has the one for level 1. You can come in here and actually change the 1 to a 2 and that kind of thing if you would like to do that. But again, we're not going to do anything quite so advanced today. So we've marked our first entry. Now let's go down to the next one where we can see next stop, Metropolis, and we'll select that text. And again, we're going to use Alt-Shift-O. It brings up our dialog box, and that is all correct. So we'll mark that, and we get the code that we want to have. And then we're going to close again, and we'll go to the next page. And I'm going to move that down, just scroll down just a little bit more. I'm going to select that text for Paducah, Alt-Shift-O, and mark, and close, and then we're going to go one more time to last stop, Nashville, Tennessee. We'll select the text, we'll Alt-Shift-O, we'll double check the text, and mark, and close. So now we have everything selected that we want to put into our outline, and we'll go back up to the top of our document. To add the table of contents page, I'm going to click just to the beginning of our vacation. So it's the very first spot on this first page, and that is where our table of contents is going to go. So I may even press enter to move our vacation down just a little bit and then move my insertion point back up to the top, because now I want to add in the table of contents. So I could go to the tabs above the ribbon, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, about the fifth one for references. And our very first group on the left is table of contents. And we're going to go to the first button, table of contents, and click that drop down. Now there are all sorts of choices, but most of these don't work so well with the keyboard shortcut way of doing things. So we're going to come down to custom table of contents and click on that. And so we can kind of get an idea of how this is going to look through the preview of having the different headings and how they're indented. They all have a dot leader. They add in the page numbers. And we can decide to show page numbers, right align page numbers. So we do have some options here that for the most part I generally keep. Also, of course, that dot leader, it's just dots, but I could have dashes or a straight line if I'd prefer, or none, although that's not my favorite. So I think I'll just keep the default. But what we are most interested here to make this table of contents even appear in the document is to come down to the bottom right where it says options. And we can click on that, because we can see that while we have this table of contents, and right now it's saying build it from styles, well, we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do is be sure to incorporate outline levels, but in the very lower left we have a checkbox for table entry fields, and we're going to check that. But notice that we could have styles and these fields that we've marked, and then we'll click OK and OK. And now we have our table of contents. Now the only thing is we need to add in the title, table of contents. And then we need to decide what to do with the table of contents, because it really doesn't belong on the same page as our first entries of our vacation. So I'm going to go to this paragraph mark just below the table of contents, and I'm going to add in a section break. Now, while I could use a page break, if I use a page break, the table of contents will be page 1, and then my document will start with page 2. But in fact, I want the table of contents to maybe have its own numbering and have my log here, my diary, to start on page 1. The way I can do that is by inserting a section break rather than that page break. So we're clicked where we want to be. we will go to Layout again in the tabs above the ribbon. And in the first group, the Page Setup group, in the right, the top right, we have breaks. And when we click that drop down, we're going to go down to the section breaks. And the first choice here is Next Page. So we're going to put Table of Contents on the first page. We're going to put in the section break and have the text of our diary, our log, go to the next page. So we'll click that. And so let's see if that's what happened. We now have our first page, our table of contents, and we can even see that there's a section break, next page, and then as I scroll down to page 2, here is the beginning of our document. And we happen to add in an extra space there, so I'm going to delete it. And now I'm feeling pretty good about this document. For our next example, I've gone back to how our original document looked, and I have added in the page breaks. So again, we have our vacation. The first stop is on one page, and then on the second page, we have Metropolis. On the next page, we have Paducah, and on the last page, we have Nashville, Tennessee. Well, when we come back up to the top, we are going to add styles that automatically create the table of contents. Now, that means we need to think about what we want to do with the title. Do we want our vacation as part of the table of contents? And I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to format it separately from the other kinds of divisions in this document. So I'll go with our vacation and even blue, and I think I'll make it 18 point, I don't know, maybe italic, and instead of Calibri, let's make it something else. Let's make it Book Antiqua. That looks like fun. And now, for the rest of the document that I do want to have show up in the table of contents, I can select the text and make sure I'm on the Home tab of the ribbon and go to the middle of that ribbon where we have styles. And then I simply need to decide, do I want heading 1? That's almost the same size as my title. I'm not so sure. Let's do heading 2. Here's the thing though, if I actually use heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3, they will automatically indent. So maybe I better use heading 1. And then I'll come down to the next one, next stop, and we'll use heading 1. And let's go down. For Paducah, let's go ahead and use heading 2 because we could maybe do 2 of these things on the same day. And then let's come down and do Nashville as heading 1, just so we can kind of see how that looks. And then let's go back to the top where we have now marked everything that we want to have in our table of contents. Now, one thing you do need to be careful about is when you say you want to insert a table of contents, wherever your insertion point is, that's where the table of contents is going to go. So I'm going to press Enter to bring our vacation down, and then I'm going to move at least one line above our vacation to insert the table of contents. So now let's go back to References, which is about the 5th tab on the ribbon. Go to the first group, Table of Contents, and then go to the first button. And I'm going to click the drop down because now we want to start with either Automatic Table 1 or Automatic Table 2. And one of the big differences between the two is Automatic Table 1 says Contents, and Automatic Table 2 says Table of Contents. So not a whole lot of difference, but notice how they both use dot leaders, they both put in page numbers, and they both indent according to the heading style that you've used. Well, let's go with table of contents. So this is automatic table 2. We'll click on it, and you can see that we have an indent for Paducah as we had predicted, and it just says table of contents very nicely. Now again, we're going to want to add in a section break between our table of contents and then the text of our document. And really, my insertion point is kind of where I would like for it to be. So all I need to do is go to the Layout tab, which is the 4th tab above the ribbon. Go to the top right of this first group, the Page Layout group, and select Breaks. And we want to go past the page breaks down to the section breaks, where we're going to add in a section break that separates the 2 pages like we would like. So we'll have table of contents on one page, and then the next page will start the document that we are typing and adding to. So next page. And so now as we look at this, as I scroll up, I have my table of contents on one page, and as I go down, our vacation starts on the second page. Now I have managed to add in an extra line, so I can delete that so that our text is right at the top of that first page. On occasion, you may find that you need to add to your table of contents. So let's add some text here in our first page of our document. Let's say that we go to St. Louis and we go to the zoo, and we add some information there, and then we go to Busch Gardens and we want to add some information there, and we've decided that those should be heading 2, so we'll go to heading 2 and define those as well. But when I go back up to the table of contents, it doesn't just automatically fix itself. So we need to click somewhere, anywhere in the table of contents. And then depending on where you are, you can come up here to the upper left above the table of contents where it says Update Table. Or you could go to References, and on the left where you have the table of contents group, you also have the button to update the table, or you can press the F9 key on your keyboard. So 3 choices, but we can update this table. And then it's going to ask us, do we want to update the page numbers only? Because occasionally text will move to another page, but the actual headings stay the same. Well, we could do that. Or we can say that we want to update the entire table, and then click OK. And now we've added in the zoo and Busch Gardens all on page 2. Now there's one other issue here, and that is St. Louis should be on page 1. So we need to fix the page numbers. Now to do that, I'm going to go to Insert, just above the ribbon, second tab, and I'm going to go to the right where we have the header and footer group, and the last choice in that group is page number, and I'm just going to take some defaults. So I'm going to click on the drop down arrow here, and I'm going to go to bottom of page, and instead of going to the right like the arrow shows, I need to go to the left, and I'm just going to do plain number 3. And so now it shows me in the footer that I have a page number 1, and if I scroll down where I have our vacation where it starts, now we can see page number 2, and as I scroll down, page number 3. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because what we need to do is go to our table of contents, and where it says the 1, what we really need to do is say, you know what, we don't really want to show it here. And so we need to select that number and right click on it, so we get the choice of Format Page Numbers, and we'll click on that. And we can say that we want to include a chapter number. We want to have a format. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is have a fancy, I guess that's Romanette number for our table of contents. And we aren't continuing at the previous section because there is no previous section, so we'll say OK. And now you can see that we have that small Roman number. Now when we come down to what is page 2 in the file, but actually page 1 of our document, we're going to again right-click on that 2 after we've selected it, and we're going to format the page numbers. We'll keep the 1, 2, 3 as it usually is, but now we don't want to continue from the previous section, which is another reason why we put in a section break. We're going to start at 1 instead and click OK. So now our St. Louis page is 1, and our Metropolis page is 2, and our Paducah page is 3, etc. Well, let's go back to our table of contents because it needs to be fixed. So first of all, I need to go to the ribbon, and on the right hand side you can see that we're kind of in a special area here where the page numbers are in the header and footer. So we're going to close the header footer, then we're going to definitely click in this table. We're going to update the table, and while we could update the page numbers only, let's just update the whole thing, click OK. And so now our first stop, St. Louis, let me even click off so we can see better. First stop, St. Louis, is page 1, Zoo, page 1, Busch Gardens, page 1. Now, as I am moving my mouse, you can see that it says we can control-click to follow the link. So let's do that. Let's control-click, and here we are at Busch Gardens. And of course, I can do a control-home to get back to the top. At some point, I may also decide that I would like to just delete the table of contents because I think it's not really serving the purpose that I was hoping that it would serve. Well, in that case, I can click on my table and select it, and then go back to the References tab and go to the Table of Contents group, and then with that Table of Contents button, I can click the drop down and come down to Remove Table of Contents, click on that, and now it is no longer there, and our vacation starts on just a clean page with nothing here on page 1. So I could clean that up very easily, and I have removed, though, the table of contents. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, Learning Express Library, and Udemy Business. We also premiere 2 new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel. From there, be sure to look for our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist, which contains all of our tech videos.